This is the author of Hunter x Hunter, Yoshihiro Togashi, and as with most mangaka, not a lot of images exist of him. They tend to prefer their privacy, with this picture probably being the singular most famous one, aside from the image of him gaming in a sea of his own garbage, which was used to inspire Dwin on Greed Island. However, it is rather appropriate that this is the most well-known photo of Togashi, as it was taken 7 years ago at a Keakizaka 46 concert, a group who are now known as Sakurazaka 46, an unbelievably influential Japanese idol supergroup whose existence has influenced a startling amount of Hunter x Hunter, particularly in the era of the Succession contest, with group members having made appearances aboard the Black Whale 1, as well as many Nen abilities having been inspired by their songs, several Kaki and Prince plot lines inspired by the group, and with Togashi even going so far as to publicly reveal the end of Hunter x Hunter on a variety show featuring a member of the group. Togashi draws direct inspiration from a lot of real-world figures, events, music, books, biology, geography, history, religion, etc. Anything it is that we humans have done, Togashi has recognized and incorporated some element of it into Hunter x Hunter. But it would not be an exaggeration to say that the existence of this one idol group has impacted Hunter x Hunter more than any other singular inspiration. And Sakurazaka 46 is also a core reason why we get Hunter x Hunter as often as we do. I say often, currently we're on a schedule of 10 chapters every 2 years, but mate, let me tell you, without this idol group, there may be even less. Here is an example. In chapter 393, Henry Biganufno goes to meet Hisoka at the onboard cinema of the Black Whale 1, and of course we now know that this was not in fact Hisoka. No, it was sneaky Benolanov in a Hisoka disguise, but outside of the cinema are a series of posters, all of which are references to Sakurazaka 46, my favorite of which being this one of the girl with her head stuck in a chair. Nothing major and nothing story-changing, in this case that is, as a lot of story-changing stuff to come, but this did not go unnoticed by the group, and when Togashi was asked why he drew them, he answered. The posters in the series indeed feature members of Sakurazaka 46, including Yumiko-san, that being Yumiko Seiki, who we'll get a lot more into in a bit, but Togashi continues. When I'm drawing the same art style for a long time, waves of fatigue can sometimes set in, so I use that panel as a reward to encourage myself. If I go on for another X pages, I can draw a poster, which as someone who has now spent a very large amount of my life patiently waiting for more Hunter x Hunter, this sort of thing is music to my ears. Togashi finding the inspiration to continue drawing despite his fatigue. And these, I guess we'll call them reward panels, appear quite frequently in the Succession contest chapters. Another example of which is chapter 383, where during the banquet we even have a performance, which on the in-world official schedule is credited as staff, but it appears to be Sakurazaka 46 on a stage inspired by the Keakizaka days. Then in the chapter prior to that, we saw Hulkenberg's personal Nen ability for the first time, which has him strike a pose inspired by the group. And speaking of poses, when we head downstairs to catch up with the Phantom Troop, Illumi introducing himself is done with what's called the Hiragana pose, and this is the trademark pose of Hiragana Keakizaka 46, which is a subgroup, because one of the very fun gimmicks of these gigantic sprawling supergroups is that they get to split all of the members off into different little niche subgroups. Illumi Zoldyck of course knows all of this, and we can even ask him about his fandom using Polybuzz, a free, private, and immersive AI chat platform with over 20 million characters, including Mr. Sir Illumi Zoldyck himself. But what's this? It turns out that Illumi was Hisoka in a texture surprise disguise. Very unexpected. Good sir, what are you doing here? Got spying on me in the shower, apparently. Very on brand. His golden eyes traced over your exposed form with predatory interest. Right, we're gonna talk to someone else. And next up, I have found Kurapika. First let's just make sure he's got the right intentions. Are you also here to trace over my exposed form? That just made him awkward and angry. So you know what? Let's ask a real question. What's with Togashi's obsession with idols? Let me put it this way. The author clearly has other creative interests. Yeah, look, I think that's definitely the kindest way we're going to find to put this, so let's take it. And if you'd like to ask Kurapika or Hisoka at your own risk any more questions, then all you need to do is click my link in the description to download Polybuzz today and gain access to 20 million characters from every piece of media imaginable and also real life, and you can also create your own characters to chat with. And you can use my promo code WORLD22 for a free Poly Premium trial. Just enter the code in the search bar and bam, it is right there waiting for you. And just on a personal note, sponsors like Polybuzz are what make our videos possible, so please do click the link and show them some support. But for now, let's get back to the weirdest video I've ever made. In any case, Illumi is clearly a fan of Hiragana Keakizaka 46, and Lynch Fullboko appears to be a fan as well. well, as in chapter 390 she's reading a magazine called With, featuring member Yui Kobayashi, and then there's this panel which is very difficult to explain and I honestly can't be bothered, but the Japanese dialogue is a very sneaky reference implying that Kurapika is also a fan of Keiakizaka 46, as well as another very sneaky pose in a promotional drawing for Jump Festa, where Kurapika is making the hiragana pose and Killua is doing the Hulkenberg pose. These little references are littered everywhere across the arc, and I think that even the biggest of superfans would have trouble spotting all of them, because some of them are incredibly obscure, although some of them are very out in the open, such as in chapter 403 where Prince Benjamin was given a letter which looks to be very serious prince business to us English-only speakers, but in Japanese it's just the lyrics of an entire song by Nogizaka 46, who are a sister group of Sakurazaka. Not a subgroup, a sister group, they're two different things, but all of this functions as Togashi's rewards for completing work. He uses these panels to push himself forward, draw some manga, and then give himself permission to fanboy about this idol group, / idol groups plural, that take up quite a bit of his mental bandwidth. And now we're going to get into some major characters, some major nen abilities, and even events that would just not exist without Sakurazaka 46. But first, I think it's important to understand exactly what they mean to Togashi, as well as why he continues to incorporate them. In Togashi's own words, if I had to describe them in one word, it would be sincerity. Their earnest attitude, especially in delivering songs, has been consistent since the Keiakizaka 46 era. I believe the experience gained over time has made it possible for them to present the concept of songs with a higher level of precision and stability. And mate, this is extremely high praise from a man like Togashi, who is a bit of a renowned nihilist. Oftentimes, Hunter x Hunter tends to be inspired by the more negative aspects of humanity, which definitely takes a mental toll on Togashi. However, Sakurazaka seem to represent a rare shot of human positivity, and even though they work in different art forms, it seems like Togashi genuinely admires their ability to deliver sincere work with a high level of professionalism, which is very much what he strives to do with Hunter x Hunter. Togashi was burnt out by the production line nature of manga that led to the unceremonious ending of Yu Yu Hakusho, and with Hunter x Hunter, Togashi wants to rectify that mistake by making sure that it is produced completely on his terms. And Togashi's terms these days essentially mean Sakurazaka 46's terms, because let's get into some pretty big stuff. As many of you will know, almost every nen ability in Hunter x Hunter has two names, one in kanji and one in the furigana indicated above the kanji. And in the case of 10th Prince Kacho, her guardian spirit beast is called both Without You and Season of 2, both of which are direct references to Keiakizaka 46 songs. And there is a pretty profound reason for this, because Togashi has actually been asked what his favorite nen ability in the entire series is, and it was this one. As for what I like, it would be the older sisters, the 10th Prince, Season of 2, Without You. While I was drawing the storyboards, I saw the choreographer Takahiro talking on a show about the intention behind the choreography of Season of 2 and his interpretation of the song. I was so moved and inspired by it that I finished the storyboards all at once. I like these two songs so much that when I see them side by side in a live concert setlist, my emotional balance collapses. Yes, I like the songs more than the ability itself. So in the context of Hunter x Hunter, this is the ability that clones and impersonates one of the twins if either of them happen to die, which Kacho did, she is just very dead, and now her nen beast is impersonating her so that her sister Fugetsu won't have to live without Kacho. And it's pretty wild to think that these major plot and character beats aren't just inspired by songs, but very specifically Togashi seeing these two songs being performed one after the other in a set list. Combination of them overwhelmed him, and so he was inspired to create two characters and an ability based on that. In fact, pretty much everything happening with these two characters comes back to this idol group. In chapter 374, we see Fugetsu looking at a photo of her and her sister, and it's noted in an establishing shot that it is currently 1:27 in the morning, which is a reference to the song AM 127, and we've already gone through the letter to Prince Benjamin, which was just song lyrics. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that Togashi killed 10th Prince Kacho simply due to these songs. The juxtaposition of those two songs in a set conjured an extremely powerful emotion that Togashi was compelled to express on page. And while that was pretty bad news for Kacho, it could give us quite a bit of insight into the future of Fugetsu. Because if Togashi were to kill her now, then it would disrupt the beauty of what's being created here. It would be removing the music that inspired this entire plotline, and given how attached Togashi is to the group, it feels to me like he'd want to keep Fugetsu alive, and that she's likely a prime candidate to survive the succession contest. Not necessarily win, but survive. But now let's talk about Silent Majority. This was a sub-mystery set up in chapter 369, as we now have a mysterious nen puppet murdering murdering people in Kurapika's class one by one, the user of which still has not been found. Well, what if I told you, person listening to Man on the internet, that we can use idol theory to determine who the culprit is? You'd probably say, but Man on the internet, there's no way you can do that, but I am afraid there is. As you may have guessed, Silent Majority is another song by Keiakizaka46, and the main singer in this song is Yurina Hirate, who also serves as the visual inspiration for the Silent Majority ability, and whose existence is also one of the leading pieces of evidence to deciphering who the user of Silent Majority is, as one of the many suspects in the room is a maid named Yuri, which is thought to be a reference to Yurina, and thus Togashi could be subtly giving us the culprit here. It's the sort of thing that sounds like a stretch, and yeah, maybe it is. Could also be just a blatant red herring, but given how much Togashi is, I mean, it's crazy how driven he is by references to this group, I would definitely not put it past him. At the very least, it's another example of a very prominent plot point in Hunter x Hunter that just wouldn't even exist without Sakurazaka46, as is the main meat of Second Prince Camilla. Her nen ability is the cat who lived a million lives, which in Japanese is Nekononoe, another song by the group, and Camilla's cat makes a singular noise being Neru, which is a direct reference to group member Nagahama Neru, although this doesn't come across in English, because the cat's dialogue in the official Viz translation is need. It's times like this that I really feel for Lillian Olsen, who is the official translator of Hunter x Hunter, because it is a difficult enough series as it is. But the sheer amount of idol references and the obsession required to identify them, I think, is simply impossible for any translator to have. But a key running theme of the Succession contest is that nen abilities are dictated by these idol groups. Togashi picks a song that he likes, a song that moves him, and then he plonks that emotion into the series and constructs a nen ability around it. And there's a particularly special former member named Yumiko Seki, who we've mentioned it once before in this video, but she's very important because she is a huge Hunter x Hunter fan, something that definitely did not go unnoticed by Togashi, who has been unusually and excitedly open after this revelation came to light. In fact, all of the Togashi quotes that I've used in this video so far have come directly from questions asked by Yumiko Seki. She asked Togashi 10 questions, and he practically wrote an essay's worth of response to each of them. And one of those questions was also when Togashi found out that she was a Hunter x Hunter fan, to which he responded, "I found out when I read your blog post during the Keiakizaka46 era. At the time, I was in the habit of going from the Keiakizaka46 message app to the members' blogs. Since I'm just one regular fan, I was so surprised at first to see you mention the series that it felt like being talked to by someone on the street. Even more than that experience, what made my heart drop was at the New Year's special feature for If I Turn the Corner, Will Sakurazaka Be There? When you mentioned that you wanted the complete set of Hunter x Hunter. As soon as I saw that, I started pacing around my workplace thinking I have to do something about this. However, since I'm hopelessly socially awkward with a negative self-conscious personality, I would agonize over things like, would it make her feel uncomfortable? And wouldn't it be a nuisance if I really sent something? I'm truly sorry that it took me 2 whole years to finally decide to send it." Which is a very interesting insight into Togashi, but there are 2 questions in particular that have been of great interest to the Hunter x Hunter fandom. The first is, how much of Hunter x Hunter's story did you have in mind when you started writing it? To which Togashi replied, "The first 3 chapters. Once I had a rough idea of the setting, a story in another world that focuses on the profession of hunters, I felt like I could continue the story as long as I wanted. So I decided that the goal of serialization would be to continue for as long as possible, and that it should start with the main character, TBD, taking the hunter exam. At the start of serialization, I decided to write 3 storyboards and a scene where the main character fails the exam, and the story jumps 1 to several years into the future. I didn't decide on the content of the exam until right before the start of the series because I wanted to enjoy the fact that I didn't know what would happen. In the end, after I discussed it with my editor, the idea of Gon failing the exam was rejected." And this I find fascinating because it confirms almost everything I've ever suspected about Hunter x Hunter, which is that Togashi went into it with no plan whatsoever, and that was the intention. It wasn't him being lazy, it's because he wanted the joy of discovery. And in fact, the one plan that he did have, the only plan that he had, was rejected by his editor at the time. And it really makes me wonder what the series would have been like if Gon had been allowed to fail the hunter exam, something that we'll never know the answer to, and up until recently that was thought to be the same for the ending of Hunter x Hunter. because the final question asked by Yumiko Seiki was whether or not an ending for Hunter x Hunter had been decided, and this prompted Togashi to write the now infamous revelation that he has 4 endings in mind for the series, which he's labeled as endings A through D, each of which are distinguished by how much he feels the audience will be satisfied. And in direct response to Yumiko Seiki's questioning, Togashi even went so far as to reveal the entirety of ending D, which Togashi has said that if he was to unfortunately pass away before Hunter x Hunter ends, and this is what we should consider to be the canon ending. This ending featured Gon's granddaughter Gin making the decision of whether or not to follow in her grandfather's footsteps, and if you'd like to know what happened in detail, and I've got another video painstakingly covering every detail of that ending on this channel. The point is, it is a very real possibility that this will be the canon ending of Hunter x Hunter, and the only reason why we even know about it is because of Togashi's obsession with this idol group. If one of their members hadn't have asked, then Togashi may never have revealed this. And he also drew Yumiko Seiki a pretty fantastic killua, which is clearly drawn with a level of passion that we almost never see with any singular drawing in the actual manga. And look, I don't think it's at all an exaggeration to say that the very future of Hunter x Hunter is shockingly dependent on Sakurazaka 46, because at the very least for the last 7 years now, they have been a source of hope and optimism for Togashi and have quite literally inspired him to draw and to continue Hunter x Hunter. So for our sake, I wish Togashi a very healthy and productive obsession so that we can conclude the Succession Contest arc and one day perhaps even the whole of Hunter x Hunter.